Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today I'm excited to take a look at Campaign Trail. Now here's the funny thing, here in the Dice Tower we don't talk about politics much, but the actual idea of voting and politicking across America is fascinating. Every time we have a presidential election race, I am absolutely fascinated by it, especially from a numbers perspective. Love or hate the Electoral College, it's definitely interesting because the most votes in each state, well, most states, means then that state with all its electoral votes goes to that candidate. And again, like I said, taking everything else out, and I'm not here to start a debate on this. I'll delete comments to talk about this in the chat. But it's just an interesting mathematical exercise. So that's what this game does. In this game, you can play one of the two parties, Republican versus Democrat, or you can play as the Libertarians, or if you have the expansion, the Green Party. I want to be clear, though, the game is not really about the actual politics. You're not sitting here and arguing over the hot button topics. I mean, you are, but it's done in a very abstracted way. So if you're like, oh no, I don't want to get in an argument with the other person at the table, it doesn't matter. I can play a party that I very much disagree with, and it doesn't really matter to me. I'm playing red, blue, yellow. That's what it kind of feels like. That being said, I think there's a lot of cool things in this game. So let's take a look at how it plays, and then we'll be back. I'm not going to show you a complete setup of this board because it takes forever to place out all the different pieces that are on here. But there is some setup at the beginning of the game. You'll notice that there's different states in this game, and each state shows you its electoral vote, and it also shows you which way the state is leaning. So you can see this one is leaning towards Republican, although if you're playing with the independent party here, the yellow, the Libertarians, then they would have the second tiebreaker. So depending if you're playing blue versus yellow, then yellow wins the state. If you're playing yellow versus red, red wins the state, and so on and so forth. So you can see there's all kinds of states, and it does evenly balance out. This is good because up here at the top of the board, you have a visual representation of who's winning. I have a deluxe version of this game that also includes the Green Party, but we're not going to be talking about them really. That's just, you can play with a fourth player. But each state has a tile, and as you are winning different states, so you can see how long California and Florida, and here I have California and Texas. So instead of adding everything together, but as the states get smaller, so do these little pieces. Like New Hampshire here, a smaller state, but every state can count, and you're trying to have, at the end of the game, have the most votes by winning these states. Anytime you pull ahead in a state, you get to take that state from the other person's column and put it in your own. If there's ever a tie, you refer to the tiebreaker that the state is on. Now you're going to be playing the game by moving a candidate around, and so that's going to be done with this card system. On your turn, you're going to be playing a card, and cards will have different things on them. Not every card has every action on it, but you're going to discard a card and take an action. One of those actions is travel. So if the card has a T on it, you can move your candidate that many states. In this case, it's 5. So I'd be able to move 5 states. Sometimes a travel shows an airplane on it, like this one does here. At that point, you can move to any state that has a city. So for example, Texas here has, you can see there's a little airplane here and a city. So you can fly straight to that state. So again, one of the things you can do is you can travel. Another thing you can do is you can raise money. Funding here, fundraise, you just take that much money. So there are millions of dollars included with the game on these cards, which are good quality, by the way. And then the last thing down here is you are trying to recruit voters. And you're not actually putting voters on the board, you're just registering them. That's what the R stands for. And so you'll take them from the supply and put them in your own personal supply. Now, I should mention that this game comes with 1s, 3s, and 5s. There's a lot of them, but I found making change got a little annoying after a while. I would have liked had they had some 10s in here. We found that in one of our games, we actually ran out of voters as the game went by. Some cards have a special ability. Sometimes they do a single thing. Draw 2 cards and play them. You may choose and take a different action for each card. Some give you a special ability. At the beginning of your turn, the party who holds the majority in your home state gains 10 million. So there's all sorts of different things. Move to your home state and place 3 registered voters in it. And there is a lot of different cards in this game. Sometimes they give you some pretty powerful special abilities. So here's a frequent flyer. When I take a travel action, I can move one extra state, or I can forgo moving to move your running mate up to the specified number of states. Or this one here, I gain 3 registered voters each time any opponent takes an advertise action. So you get some of these cards out early, you can give yourself some really good special abilities. Then there's 2 different ways to put votes in states. One of those ways has to do with issues here. You're advertising, and when you advertise, you can advertise, and you're going to pay 20 for each of these icons that you use, 20 million. And then for each one, you can take one of your registered voters and put it in one of the states shown in the picture, as long as it matches that icon. Those icons are also on the board, but it is really convenient that they're listed right here on the card. The other thing is campaign. Campaign is a cheaper way. It's 60 million for 6 votes. And those votes can be put anywhere in where it shows on this state, in these different regions on the board. However, to be able to put the votes there, you need to be in one of those states, or your running mate, if you're playing and you're running around with 2 different people. So those are the 2 main ways to get votes on the board. Gameplay is going to be going through these decks of cards. You're going to play a card, draw a card. When these cards run out, there's going to be a debate. So there are 2 different debates that are randomly drawn at the beginning of the game. Each of these debates has different issues. You're going to take icons for these issues. You're going to put them on a separate board here. And that board just is essentially going to have this attached to it that shows your color of your party. And then players are going to be taking the remaining cards in their hand that they didn't use over the course of a round, and they're going to be playing them for these gray icons at the top, trying to move these icons towards you. You're playing back and forth. You get 3 rounds of that. It's possible to bring in an issue that wasn't even in debate, but you have to play one of the issues that is in the debate to go back and forth. And at the end, depending on how far they are on your board, you're going to get voters in the states that match those. And this game comes with a little book here, the party reference book. So when you win, for example, social and human rights, it will tell you where the states are that care about those. So different states, these states care about the economy. These states care about policies and programs and gun control, the surveillance. This is the closest the game comes to talking about actual issues, but there's no real specifics here. It just means you won the issue talking about whatever. Then you go to the next deck of cards after the debate, and you go on. There's a few more rules other than that, but I did want to point out that I do like that the different actions you can take up here, travel, fundraise, register, advertise, campaign, politic, are all listed on the board for you. Everything looks really nice. Again, I have a very nice, the upgraded one. There are a few issues. Like I said, I wish there was more bigger ones of these pieces here. The cards are really, really nice. Good quality. The rule book was pretty easy to understand. So overall, I think the game looks fantastic. Now, what I showed you there was kind of how the 2-player game works. And I want to say, if there's one thing I'm not a big fan of, is I feel like this game is kind of shoving a whole bunch of, like the rules are pretty much there for you, but there's a lot of extra stuff, and there's all this extra stuff. This Kickstarter bloat definitely affected this game. They have dirty politics. I don't want dirty politics in my thing, because it's just more like of a take that situation. There's a whole section on solo play. That's fine, but this is the kind of game I want to go up against somebody else at. I played this with multiple players. You play 2 versus 2. You can play 1v1. That doesn't work very well. This game is best as 1 versus 1. And I should have mentioned, there's also, you can become a candidate. And when you become a candidate, let's say you want to play the economist, they give you special powers and sometimes disadvantages here. Each one of them, here's the activist and the other side. I think some of them are definitely based on various people in politics, but it doesn't say who they are. So that's up to you whether you want to play with these people or not. The populist, the experienced candidate. But yeah, it is what it is. I like these. I like the special abilities they have, although I'm not sure they're balanced. So that's one thing. So let's talk about different aspects of the game. I'm not convinced this game is going to be a little bit of a roller coaster. There's some randomness to it. Now, I don't mind the randomness of these cards. I think these cards are fantastic. You're sitting around, you're trying to control your hand of cards. Are you going to fundraise? Are you going to use this card to move? Are you going to go? And that's interesting. But the special abilities on them, if you can get a really powerful special ability out early, like for example, this says travel costs. I get $10 million in registered voter each time any opponent takes a travel action. If that's the first turn of my game, I've kind of made my opponent say, anytime I travel, my opponent gets money. And so these cards that give you special abilities, getting them out early is really powerful in this game. And I don't know about that. The debate stuff also. Sometimes the debate topics, you're like, wow, I have a handful of cards that really works well with these debate topics. And you can kind of trounce your opponent, not because of clever play, but because you just happen to have the stuff to be able to debate your opponent in that final election. And yet, despite that, I still really enjoy this game. There's a good chunk of luck in it, and basically in cards and how things happen and things like that. But I like the idea of playing a card, getting some money, playing a card, traveling around, playing a card, putting voters. There's lots of different ways to put voters out. You will battle to the death over the big states. You know, everyone wants Texas, California, Florida, New York. The game's a little off in the fact that every state's a battleground state, because in reality, some states in America are red or blue, and they're likely not going to change no matter how much advertising and time you spend there. In this game, it's possible. Also, the fact that the Libertarian Party and the Green Party are big enough that you can play one of those, that's also not necessarily accurate. But that's okay, because I'm here to play a game, not necessarily play through and, I'm playing for historical accuracy. As a game, battling for votes, this can be very much compared to a very popular game called 1960. And I think as a game, I like this one better. 1960 has historical accuracy, and it's also a game that I can play better because as of me recording this, that election was 63 years ago. Okay, so it doesn't really get people as heated. This one is any year, any time. And so I know some people, every time I mention this, someone in the comments will be like, I hate these kind of games. Well, that's fine, but you should have known that from the cover of the box. I do like these kind of games, and I think this one's good. Yes, in my box, there's a bit of Kickstarter bloat, a little too much stuff that they threw in. I don't need all this extra stuff. There's event cards and things. I don't need all that. The game by itself is fine. And so that I can enjoy. I think it's best with 2 players. I think it's a nice back and forth. The timing on it is good. Yeah, so if you're like me and you like the mathematical part of elections and some of the stuff that goes into that, this is something you're going to enjoy, I think, quite a bit. It's not overtly political. Like I said, it mentions the issues in the elections, but it's not even that really big of a deal. You could add it in if you want. If you want to sit there and shout mantras and platitudes as you go through and play, you can do that. But right now, it's something I think is a lot of fun. It's a nice production. So they're definitely worth checking out. If you're into this game, not everyone is, but I like it a lot. Good area control style game, Campaign Trail.